Hi guys, welcome back to ladensercrochets. If you're new to the channel, you're welcome. My name is Liz. Kindly subscribe and join the family. In this tutorial, we're making this sweater dress, a turtleneck sweater dress with a ribbed effect. And it's a very nice dress. I love the outcome, but I ended up with something that is tight and I wanted it to fit loosely on my body. So I'll be making another one, but a bit longer and a bit wide so that it fits as loosely as I wanted it to be. You can make this tight or loose, that's all up to you. I feel this is a dress that will fit a size 8 to 10 very well, and I'm a size 12, and that's why I want another dress that is a bit wider. Get your materials and let's get into the tutorial. I'm working with a medium weight yarn. It's a Winter King. The brand is Winter King, a Kenyan brand. It's 100% acrylic. It's a 4-ply yarn. So get any medium weight yarn of your choice. Then a 4mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, stitch markers, darning needle, and a measuring tape. The measurements that you need are the full length. I'm working a full length of 32 inches. Then you're going to need the measurement of the widest part of your body. It could be your bust, it could be your hips. So measure the widest part. I'm working with my hips of 44 inches. Then you're going to take this 44 divided by 2 and I'll get 22. So I'm going to work 2 panels. Each of them will be 22 inches in width, 32 inches in length. Begin with a slip knot. And our starting chain is the full length of the dress. The starting chain is the full length of the dress. So now you're going to chain a chain that is long enough to fit the full length of your dress. So I'm going to chain until I get 32 inches. I've done a total of 120 chains, and this gets me to 32. Let's measure from this point without stretching. So without stretching, it goes all the way to 32. Right there. It's actually almost at 33, and that's what I'm going to work with. Once you get your starting chain ready, you're going to block off the last chain, hold it like this, and chain one more. Then insert your hook into that chain that you're holding. Then yarn over, pull a loop, and then pull this loop through the loop that was already on the hook to complete a slip stitch. Then we're going to work a second slip stitch into the second chain, a third slip stitch into the chain that follows, then another slip stitch, that's 4, then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to do a total of 15, so 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now that's going to act as the ribbon at the bottom part of the dress. Then we're going to get the stitch marker and mark the 15th stitch. After that, the next stitch is going to be a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook,
into the next stitch, yarn over and grab a loop to get 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all the 3 loops to complete a half double crochet. Insert your hook, yarn over and insert your hook into the next chain and do a half double crochet, a half double crochet into the next chain, half double crochet into the next, then 1 half double crochet into all the chains till you get to the end of this first row. I'm at the end of row 1 and this is what I have so far. To begin row 2, chain 1 and turn, and row 2 is going to be a slip stitch row. Normally we would work into this stitch right here, but then we're going to work only in the back loop. Let me show you the back loops. So as you can see, we have the very visible stitches, these ones right here, but then we're not going to work into these stitches, we're going to work into these loops. And these are the back loops. These ones, so into here. I'm having a problem with the focus on my camera. I'm not sure if you can see what I'm trying to show you. So these are the back loops, these ones. So that's where we're going to work our slip stitches. Instead of working into these stitches, we're going to work into the back loops. So now from the first stitch, after chaining 1 and turning, we're going to begin in the very first stitch, insert your hook into the back loop and complete a slip stitch. Insert your hook into the next back loop, do a slip stitch, into the third back loop, slip stitch, into the fourth, and we're going to place 1 slip stitch into every stitch to the end of row 2. When you get to the stitch marker, remove it, place a slip stitch into that stitch, and then mark it again. Then continue to the end with 1 slip stitch into every stitch. Make sure you're working in the back loops. And make sure that your stitches are not too tight, because if you make the slip stitches too tight, you will not be able to work the next row easily. In the last stitch on this side, we're going to work the both loops. So instead of working this back loop, we're going to insert our hook into both of the loops, and then slip stitch, chain 1 and turn to begin row 3. We begin row 3. So on this side that we are marking, we're only going to be having slip stitches, no half double crochet rows, and that is why we are marking the stitch, so that we know where the slip stitches begin. So now I'm going to work a slip stitch from the first stitch to the 15th stitch, working in the back loops only. So beginning from the back loop of the first stitch, and then the second one up to the up to the stitch marker. Remove the stitch marker, then work a slip stitch there, which is the 15th slip stitch, and mark that stitch again. You can actually work without marking, as long as you can remember which side you're working slip stitch all through. You can work without the stitch marker. Then we are in the half double crochet stitch. In the back loop, you're going to yarn over, place your hook into the back loop of the next stitch, grab a loop to get 3 loops, and yarn over, pull out through all. Then work 1 half double crochet in the back loop of each of the stitches to the end of row 3. So we're going to be working back loops into all the stitches throughout the project, except in this last stitch and the last stitch on the other side. So you only work both loops when you're coming to the end of each row. At the beginning and in the middle of the stitches, we work the back loops. And as you work row 3, this is the effect that you're supposed to be getting. I'm in the last stitch, and into that stitch I'm going to work the back loops. Not the back loops, but the both loops, sorry. So you want to ensure that you're working into this loop and the loop at the back. We are done with row 3. We're going to chain 1 and turn to begin row 4. Row 4 is the same as row 2. So we're going to work slip stitches in the back loop of all the stitches to the end. I'm in row 4, which is the same as row 2. Then row 5 will be the same as row 3. And I'll keep repeating the 2 rows.
I went on to work a total of 60 rows, and this gets me to my 22 inches, which is half of my hip measurements. You can do this while stretching if you want your dress to be tight, but if you want your dress oversized, then measure without stretching, because I believe this dress can either be a tight dress or an oversized one. The choice is all yours. So I went with one that is not too tight and not too loose. So when I measure from the top without stretching, my width is at almost 20 inches. So I'll just give this a little bit of a stretch, and that will get me to my 22 inches. If I stretch it out completely, it gets me to 27. And that means with this measurement, this dress can fit somebody with a hip measurement of 40 up to 54 because of the 27 multiplied by 2. But then that dress will be too tight and this pattern will not be that visible. So if you have a bigger hip, I would advise that you do more rows. Once you have your back panel, get your stitch markers. You need 2 for this part, and then we're going to count 20 rows from either side, and this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. So at this point right there in that row, I'll mark. Then I'll turn to the other side and count 20 rows. You're adding 1 more row, so that instead of having 60, I have 61. So then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 multiplied by 2, that is 20. So then I'll mark that 20th stitch like that. So now this is a middle part of the back part of the dress or the back panel, which looks like this when held the right way. So now to work the front panel, we're going to start with the same number of chains that we started with, then work 20 rows. So let me work my 20 rows and I'll be back once I have the 20 rows so that I can show you how to work the middle part, because the only difference is this middle part, which is worked differently for the front panel. So now this is after working my 20 rows of the front panel. The row that I'm coming up with is the 21st, and before you complete the 21st row, you need to count 7 stitches from the top. So from here, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then mark the 7th stitch right there. Then you're going to work row 21 back up till you get to the stitch just before the stitch marker. And row 21 is a half double crochet row into the back loops. When you get to that last stitch, you're not going to work in the back loop, but in the both loops. So yarn over, instead of working here, we're going to work right here in the back, in the 2 loops, like that. And we are done with row 21. Then you're going to chain 1 and turn to begin row 22. Now we're just repeating the rows like we did in the back panel. So begin in the back loop with a slip stitch, the first back loop, then the second stitch in the back loop of the 3rd, and repeat this to the end. 1 slip stitch into every stitch to the end of row 22. So now this is my row 22, and the number of rows that we're going to do right here in between depends with your back panel. So now I'll get my back panel like this, and then I'll count the stitches that are in between the stitch markers, the rows, sorry. I'll count the rows that are in between the stitch markers, beginning with this one. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Or you can simply take the 20 that you've taken from this side and from this side, multiply by 2, that will be 40. Then in my case, I've done 60 rows, so I'll take I've done 61, so I'll take 61 minus the 40, and that gives me the 21. So in between, I'll work 21 rows with stitches ending at this point. So just count your rows and work that number of rows. and I'll meet you once you have the rows right here with this extension remaining and done. We are alternating between the slip stitch row and the half double crochet row. After the 21 rows in the middle part of the front panel, this is what I have. And now we're going to do an extension so that we have something on this side that looks exactly like this. Now we're going to chain the same number of stitches that we left here, which was 7. So from this point, make sure that you're chaining on the upper part of the panel and not the bottom part. So from here, we're going to chain 7. And 7. So those are my 7 chains. Then I'm going to turn my work. Hold the 7th chain and chain 1 more. Insert my hook into that chain that I'm holding and do a slip stitch. And do a total of 7 slip stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and that gets me to the back loop of this last stitch that we've done in the previous row. So do a slip stitch into all the back loops all the way to the bottom, and this is going to be our first row on this other side of the front panel. This is what we're going to have. So then I'm going to work a total of 20 rows, just like we have the 20 on this side. Now this is my row 1. On this side, I'll do the slip stitches up to the bottom part of the dress. Then I'll work 15 slip stitches. Then the second row, after the 15 slip stitches, I'm going to work the half double crochet stitches all the way to the top, and then alternate between the half double crochet row and the slip stitch row till I have the 20 rows. So now just keep going. I'll meet you once I have my 20 rows, and in total I'll get my 61 rows. That is 20 on this side, 21 in the middle, and 20 on this other part. So keep going. I'll meet you once I have my front panel ready. After the 20 rows on this other side, this is what I have. So at the end, I made sure that I finished with the half double crochet row, and then I chained 1 at the end and cut off the yarn. The end that I've left is for joining the shoulder parts of the front panel and the back panel. So this is the front panel that is ready, and we also have the back panel. Next, we're going to create the sleeves and then the ribbon that will go onto the neckline. So when we join the front and the back panels, we're going to create this neckline right here, and that is where the turtleneck ribbon will go. I'm first going to create the sleeves and then I'll join the pieces together. I already have one of the sleeves ready, and for this one I started with a chain of 70 and did a total of 1 2 3 4 5 6. I did a total of 45 rows. If you want your sleeve longer, you're going to do more chains, that is more than 70. If you want it wider, then you're going to do more rows. Now this one I feel is enough for me. I don't want it too wide and also not too long. So 70 stitches and then 45 rows. Now the wrist area I did slip stitches. Then on the other part I alternated between the slip stitch row and the half double crochet, just like in the panel. But for the ribbon part, for the wrist part, I did 10 stitches instead of 15 like I was doing with the front and the back panel. So let's do the sleeve. Begin with a slip knot and then chain 70. Like I've mentioned, if you want your sleeve longer, do more chains, that is more than 70. I have the 70 chains. Then I'm going to hold the last chain and chain one more. Insert my hook into that chain that I was holding and do a slip stitch. Then I'll do a total of 10 slip stitches. So that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10. Then change into half double crochet stitches and work a total of 60. So we are basically doing what we did with the back panel. When we get to the end of this row, we're going to work the slip stitch row all the way back to the end of row 2. So let me work row 1. I'll meet you at the end. I'm at the end of the first row and this is what we have. So now chain 1 and turn, begin in the back loop of the first stitch and work a slip stitch, then work slip stitches all the way to the end. Remember, in the last stitch we do not work in the back loop but in the both loops. So row 2 is a slip stitch row all the way through to the end. So I think this is basically what we did with the back panel, and if you got how to do the back panel, then this part should be easy. The only difference is that as we start row 3, we're going to work 10 slip stitches instead of 15 like we were doing here. These were 15, but then for the sleeve we're going to work 10. So now work your number of rows that will give you the width of the sleeve that you want, and I'll meet you back here once I have my second sleeve ready. So this is my neckline ribbon, and for this I chained a total of 30, and then for the rows, all the rows are rows of slip stitches. We are not alternating between the slip stitch and the half double crochet. You're just going to work with slip stitches, and for this one I did a total of, let me see, For this one, I did a total of 80 rows of slip stitches. Then at the end, I just cut off the yarn and left that end for sewing the part together. Make sure that as you come into the last stitch, you work your stitches into the both loops. But for all the other stitches, including the first one, you're working in the back loop in order to get this ribbed effect, the stretchy ribbed effect. So this will be able to stretch and fit through your head. If you have a bigger head circumference, mine is 24 and this stretches up to 24 inches. If yours is bigger, then you're going to do more rows. Now that we have all the pieces together, let's get to joining them. We're going to begin with the back and the front panel. So just get your back panel. This is my back panel. And this is the right side of the back panel. So I'm going to hold it in such a way that this is the right side, but the bottom part, the part that is facing the table, is the wrong side. Like that. Then I'll get the front panel and make sure that for the front panel, I'll have the wrong side on top. So this is the wrong side. And we are joining the first 20 rows on this side. So basically we're joining from this end to the part where we have the first stitch marker, that is 20 rows on this side and 20 rows on the other side. I'll get my darning needle and do that. I have my yarn needle right here, so I'll just get the top part, grab this end that I left right here. Okay. And you want to ensure that you join the first row on this side with the first row on the other side. As I do that, I'm going to work over this end. So just join the corresponding rows till you get to the stitch marker right here. So that part is joined. Now at the end, I'll just do a knot and then weave in the end that remains. So once that one shoulder is joined, you're just going to turn to the other side and join on that other side the same exact way. This is after joining both sides of the shoulders, and now we're going to hold our work like this. Then we're going to join the sleeves. First the sleeves, then the neckline or the turtleneck. Now get one of your sleeves, make sure that you're on the wrong side of your work, and you're going to put it on one side like this. Now you need to count the number of rows. Mine were 45, so I'm going to have 22 on one side, 22 on the other side. So I'll join on the 23rd stitch. Row, that is. So this is the 23rd row. Get one of the shoulder part that you've connected, join in the middle part of the sleeve, or the middle row of the sleeve that you've done, like that. Then you want to ensure that the number of stitches that you're going to attach on this side will be the same number that you attach on the other side. So I'll count my stitches now, and I want to ensure that this length is 9 inches, 8 to 9 inches, depending on your size. So I'll do 9. So I need to count the stitches from the shoulder part to the 9-inch mark at this point, and then count the same number of stitches on the other side. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me count from this side. So I have 35 stitches on this side. So on this side I don't need to mark. I'll count 35 on the other side. So I'm joining one on the front panel, then on the back panel. I'll count 35 stitches from this part. Then mark the 35th stitch and get this end of the sleeve and join with the 35th stitch right there. So then now I'll start joining from this point using this end that I left. I'll put it through the yarn needle. And start sewing. After joining the sleeve, this is what we have. And now you need to turn your work like this. Make sure that you're still on the wrong side. Then I'm going to get a stitch marker and mark the armpit part. This part, the last stitch on this side, and the last stitch that we joined on the other side. Mark at that point. Then we're going to start attaching from here all the way through to the armpit. Then we're going to come down. You might need to mark this part too to align your stitches, but the stitches are corresponding each other, so you might not really need to mark. But just to ensure that you keep your work neat, I would advise that you mark. So I'm going to mark at the beginning, at the end of the slip stitches, right here. But then when you're joining, just make sure that you do not skip any stitches on either side. So we're going to start joining from right here. I'll get the yarn needle and some yarn. Put the yarn through. Cut to your desired length. I don't want to cut it too long, so if I do not get to the end with it, I'll just reconnect and keep joining to the bottom. So now I'll get the first stitch on this side into the both loops. Then on the other side, I'll get the front loop, the back loop. I'll get the back loop on the other side. Then at that point, I'm going to create a knot. Then I'll work over that end as I work the stitches. So get 2 loops on this side, then 1 loop, back loop on the other side. You can work over the end or you can weave it in once you're done. Then go into the 3rd stitch on this end, both loops. Then back loop on the other side. I have the 2 sleeves in place and all these sides joined, the 2 sides. So what you're going to do is turn your work to the right side before attaching the turtleneck or the ribbon on the neck. Then we're going to get the ribbon for the neck and join the 2 sides first before joining it to the sweater, or you can join it direct to the sweater and then at the end join the 2 sides. So we're going to get one of the corners on the shoulder part, and this is the part that we're going to begin with. So now we want to join all the way around till we get back to right here where we've started. So you're going to need stitch markers and pin your work. You want to pin it in such a way that it goes all the way around and gets back to the starting point. So I think I'll just get that other end and join it too. You want to ensure that you're working on the wrong side. I'll get a stitch marker and mark. This should go somewhere on this part. There's no specific way of joining, just join however it works for you. Only ensure that you're joining in such a way that the turtleneck goes around your neck, your neckline. once you're done attaching the turtleneck, you're done with your dress. And I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed recreating this for yourself. If you have, kindly leave a like, a comment, share, subscribe if you're not subscribed. And when you get to recreate this, do not forget to tag me on my social media pages. I'll be reposting your work. I love to see what you recreate using my tutorials. See you in the next one.